Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Pride in Hostile Environment panel brought to you by InterPride for the Human Rights Conference of Copenhagen 2021. This panel is an important reminder of prides that power through their communities to access the public space in abusive environments. Let's not forget that more than 68 plus countries currently criminalize LGBT status. Other countries as well attack LGBTIQ plus people. And this situation strongly challenges our visibility, our needed visibility to deconstruct myth, lies, and prejudice surrounding LGBTIQ plus realities. To have a better understanding of these hostile environments, we're honored to have with us three distinguished speakers: Melike Balkan, the organizers of InterPride in Turkey, Chester Samba, organizer of Zimbabwe Pride, and Georgi Tabagari, organizer of Tbilisi Pride. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you for being with us. So this is an open conversation. We'd like to engage together and understand more about what's going on in your spaces, what has been happening with you, so we have a comprehensive idea on where some prides have been standing when it comes to existing in their public space or simply existing altogether. Melike?
Yeah, thank you for organizing this event. InterPride has been really helpful in the processes. Yeah, so just to give a brief introduction into what has been happening in Turkey. Since 2013, prides have always been banned in Turkey, and right now there are pride marches around the country, but most of them are banned, and most of them face police brutality every single year. And this was the case for our pride as well. I was an organizer with InterPride, and I've been organizing pride marches at the university for 6 years. But in 2019, because of the governor's ban on pride marches and also the rectorship's harsh treatment of LGBTI students, there was a police intervention to our pride march, and the violence lasted hours. And 23 people got arrested, including one academic staff member, myself included. And right now we're still at trial, and we're still being criminally charged because we attended a pride march. And the trial has been going on for 3 years. And on the 8th of November, actually, we're going to be having our final hearing on this pride march. And the judge is going to be giving a verdict. And we expect that all defendants will be acquitted of this crime. Obviously, we don't accept that attending a pride march or organizing a pride march to be a criminal act. But still, we're not sure. And that's the situation in Turkey here. Whatever you do, whatever steps that you take, you're always criminalized. Even if you organize a peaceful march or a peaceful event. And this has been increasing in frequency. And one of the worst examples of this was actually the ban on all LGBTI events in the city that we live, Ankara. In 2016, the Ankara governor actually banned all pride marches and all LGBTI related events. So it didn't even have to be a march. Even if you were doing like a movie screening or a get together between friends, it was banned. And that was a horrible thing. And it lasted for 3 years. And we fought that in courts. And also we fought that in the streets as well. And during those 3 years, we had violent crashes with the police almost all the time. And at the end, we defeated the ban in the courts, but the damage was already done. And the LGBTI community was badly hurt. So right now we're trying to bounce back from this, and we're trying to rebuild the community. But in the recent year, obviously because of COVID, we were very hard hit. And right now in Turkey, scapegoating from COVID is actually a huge problem. And in the country, LGBTIs are seen as targets. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we were targeted by a minister saying that LGBTIs are bringing disease to the country, saying that LGBTIs are the cause of COVID in the country. And a couple of months ago, our interior minister actually targeted LGBTI, saying that we are deviants and that we should be stopped. And these are not just words coming from government officials, but also actions in the form of attacks to pride marches, in the form of different people targeting us through social media, through physical violence and other things. And the community is really struggling. And you probably heard about Istanbul Pride and everything that happened there. And for the last, since 2014, every single march has been attacked by the police, and every single march had violence. So the community is trying to get together. The community is trying to increase its power. And you can see that because you can see pride marches popping up everywhere in the country. Even in the smallest provinces, even in the smallest places, you can see a pride march coming up. But still, in every single pride march, there's a police presence, and there is always a threat of violence. And it just is a huge burden on the LGBTI community, especially the youth, because just imagine yourself being a 16, 17-year-old LGBTI person and coming into the field, and everything that you see, all the news that you hear are related to violence, related to like your fellow queer people getting arrested, getting beaten, and also killed. So because of this, we're trying to heal as a community after COVID, but it is hard. Maybe this could be my introduction.
This is a brilliant introduction. Thank you very much for your generosity, because you have touched upon several points that we would like to highlight later on, especially the damage that the LGBT groups and communities suffer after all these crackdowns, after all this hostility that is, when it happens on Pride events. I know that Georgi with BDC Pride would relate to a lot of things you have said. Before we get to Georgi, I would like to talk to you, Chester, and ask for an account of what's going on with Zimbabwe Pride and the environment that you have been existing in.
Thank you very much. I think when I was listening to the last speaker, I could relate to most of the issues that she alluded to. And I think these are the issues that we see as communities as we're organizing events. For us, it's not just about the Pride events, but the mere existence or coming together of LGBTI people in social spaces is always largely contested. Contested in the sense that it attracts state repression, it attracts violence from the public, and it attracts a lot of negative perceptions that actually hinder or impact on the ability of LGBTI communities to come together in social spaces. It could just be a birthday party where LGBTI people come together. It also then attracts that kind of sinister interest from communities who would want to either stop the event or harass community members that would be coming together. So we do see that the social spaces for LGBTI people to come together, particularly in our country, are shrinking, are closing up. And this also impacts broadly on civil society spaces for people to be able to protest, for people to be able to speak out and exercise some of their freedoms or their rights around association or expression. So this also impacts on LGBTI communities who are also largely marginalized. And for us who operate in an environment where it is still illegal for two men to formulate relationships or come together, it really creates other challenges for LGBTI communities because of the politics of the day, which criminalizes our communities, because of our cultural contexts or our social spaces, which are largely conservative. It then creates difficulties for LGBTI people to be able to come together and freely express themselves. I think for us in the 90s, we would be able to organize events freely without any harassment. But when you mirror that, the economic situation in Zimbabwe was largely okay at the time. Hence, people were not worried about other marginalized groups who would then be able to be used for political processes to dissuade or dissuade public perceptions around issues that would be affecting the country. But you'll find that in the 2010s, we started seeing violence coming through into spaces where we would have organized as LGBTI people. And remember, these are private spaces where we come together. And we found that these events started attracting state harassment, state interest, and public interest as well to try and close down those spaces. And the impact that that had is, and hence would not support events that were organized under the banner of LGBTI communities, as those spaces became very violent and unsafe. It disenfranchised the communities. There was a lot of mistrust in communities, which to me speaks to the broader agenda that the state had to try and stop LGBTI people from organizing, to try and stop marginalized groups from coming together. But it hasn't dissuaded the community from organizing. If you see what's happening in the region itself, South Africa still continues to have pride marches, also with some incident, but some are largely free. You also see Botswana has come to the land. It's happening in Botswana. It's happened in Malawi more recently. So you also see that the environment is shifting and communities are also hardened. When they are faced with repression, they also organize, regroup. And I think that's the idea around why we also need pride in our context, to be able to create that awareness, to promote the visibility of our communities, and to defend the current space that we occupy as LGBTI people operating in hostile environments. I'll end here for now. Thank you.
I'm very glad that you touched actually on the basic freedoms in what you shared with us when you spoke about the freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom of press, because we understand that in all countries that that are very repressive when it comes to LGBT matters. And here, let's be clear, we're talking about the most basic thing, which is not to criminalize people for who we love, for how we identify, either sexually or gender-wise. And so it's the basic of the basic. And in conversation with a fantastic activist from Libya, she literally mentioned, because we were talking about this perception that the West is more advanced than, we're discussing the MENA region in particular, than countries in the MENA region. And I myself, I'm in Beirut, Lebanon. And then she said that the countries of the so-called West have always honored, upheld, acknowledged, and protected these basic freedoms of assembly, of speech, of press, etc. And this is literally the basis for other rights to develop and to move forward. So thank you for highlighting this, Chester. Georgi Tabagari, you made the press with Tbilisi Pride a few weeks ago, when videos of protests in front of your offices went viral on social media, and everybody was saying this, and we had our hand on our heart. It was quite something, seeing a mob of people protesting under a building, and being very loud and very vocal against the Pride organizers who were on the first or the second floor of that building. It's quite, it has been quite a very violent visual, and we felt this violence while we were only looking at it through our screen, miles away from you. So tell us more about these collated challenges that Tbilisi Pride has been going through in Georgia.
Thanks a lot. Well, I need to start with the mention with the fact that basically it's been almost like 10 years since we started more or less become a visible group in Georgia. And despite the fact that throughout the year, our activities more or less we go through with a safe environment. Of course, we have homophobic hate crimes on homophobic and transphobic hate crimes happening, but like it doesn't have a day-to-day basis phase. But in the case of freedom of assembly and to exercise any sort of protest or pride march, we've been facing repeated challenges throughout the past 10 years. Every year when we would try to get out to the streets, we are the only group in Georgia so far deprived of the right to gather peacefully, even though Georgia's constitution allows everyone to exercise freedom of assembly. It's our constitutional right. On the paper, it looks great that we have one of the, we have very liberal law, like for instance, unlike the situation in Turkey, where government bans the pride marches, there is no legal ground in Georgia to ban the pride march. But in reality, when we try to exercise that right, the counter demonstration groups are organizing themselves, and the police is not exactly attacking us to disperse, but like they are not doing much to prevent violence from happening. And this was the situation on Tbilisi. On 5th of July, we had a Pride March announced for almost a month now, and we knew that the counter demonstrations were organizing themselves. There were official violent videos calling for people to go out and mobilize themselves against the Pride March. And we were constantly giving this information to the government in an organized manner, sorted out that this is the violence that is being organized, please do something about this. And we had all the embassies and internationals involved in this as well. But unfortunately, like unlike two other events that we've had within the Pride Week, because we've had two big events within the Pride Week, the last one, which was a march, which was supposed to start at 6 p.m. We didn't even reach to the 6 p.m. because starting from the morning around 12 o'clock, the radical groups started like attacking us where we were physically. So they came to they destroyed the two offices where we were, one of our partner movements, and they ruined the Tbilisi Pride office. They were physically hunting us down throughout the whole day. I personally had to change 7 different locations that day, basically somehow to get away with the radical pogrom that was coming after us. And police was not there. Basically, it was a complete failure of Georgia's statehood in terms of upholding the basic freedoms and in terms of protecting people who were peacefully trying to assemble. So it was a huge, it was obviously a huge wave of hatred that we have never experienced before. I have to mention that these groups, because when we talk about violence, these groups are not necessarily a genuine hateful groups that just self-organize themselves to get out. They have specific leaders who are using the homophobic sentiments in the country. In our case, in Georgia, it's a matter of a geopolitical fight between Russia and the West. Just to give you an idea, basically the leads and the organizers of the groups are linked to the Kremlin foreign policy. They try to instigate the anti-propaganda law the same way as they are trying to do in Hungary, the same they have in Russia, Belarus, and in the countries which are under Russian interest. And by using LGBT rights, they try to undermine the idea of West and Georgia's pro-EU integration process. They try to pedalize on homophobia and on LGBT rights as something of a propaganda that affects the narratives are usually very similar to from country to country. It's just the political usage of the homophobia is probably different a bit. In our case, we have elections coming up in 3 months, and ruling party who are currently in the government started to using post-Pride events as their possibility for them to use homophobic grounds to get elected. For instance, the very first posters that they put on the streets has my face on it, which is very crazy because I'm a queer activist, and they try to basically undermine the opposition group by sticking my face to this. So we became like this part of the political game, unfortunately, at the moment, like post-Pride situation has escalated really further. So it went beyond 53 journalists got attacked on the Pride Day, which was not only about LGBT rights anymore, but it's about the general anti-liberal fight that they put up in Georgia, like to, if we imagine this, basically conservative groups, which have support from the US conservative powers, from Family Congress, from Russia, from all over the global conservative groups. And we basically we have to put up for our fight against this group. So it's very difficult at the moment. We don't have very high hopes about how the situation is evolving, and we only hope that the government is going to change, because with the current governmental setting, we don't have any hopes of progressing with regard to LGBTI rights in any time soon in Georgia. So I hope that this fight will lead to a political change that will ensure that our rights are being protected in future.
And we're still talking about very basic rights.
Yes.
So it's quite something. You said that it's a matter of similar narratives all over the, among similar countries, and it's very true because, when you look back at all the slurs, the homophobic or the LGBT hating slurs, insults, counter arguments, whether it is about the need for decriminalizing LGBT status or later on for marriage equality or adoption and so on. It's the same argumentation everywhere, in every single country, whether it happened in the 60s of the last century, whether it's happening now in 2021. And it's incredible because when we started Beirut Pride in 2017, which goal was to work on completing the decriminalization of LGBT status, doing work, understanding how other countries went through the decriminalization, reading books that documented this, whether the book telling the story of how the French did it or how the English did it or how other places in the world did it, when we were witnessing and accompanying our friends and the people we know and acquaintances in Botswana and in India when they recently decriminalized. It's incredible to see how both the parliament and the judiciary use always the same discourse, whether in Botswana or India now in the 2020s or in other places in the world, in Europe, for example, in the 80s of the past century. So it's quite crazy. And then also, Georgi, when you speak about the political fight between Russia and the West, whether, it seems that while politically we know that the Cold War still hasn't finished and it's constantly reinventing itself among new tractions between powers or so-called whether regional or international powers in the region. We spoke about this landscape of challenges, of hostility, of what's going on, etc. But how do Pride organizers handle these sinisters, these issues? What have you been doing, whether in Metu Pride, whether in Zimbabwe Pride, whether in Tbilisi Pride? You foresee that things are going to happen, crackdowns are going to take place. Did you put together, for example, a contingency plan? Do you mobilize support from LGBT people, diplomats, institutions, other prides, etc.? How do you address these things? How have you been doing this, Melike, for example?
Yeah, I can start. And before I get to that, and that's a very important question, I just wanted to mention one thing. And the reason that there's a common rhetoric between all these countries is that they communicate very well with each other. So you can see the dispersal of the anti-gender movement, for example. And you can see from Poland, from Hungary to Russia, and to Turkey. Right now in Turkey, we don't have an anti-gender movement, but it's brewing right here. And you can see it from the government's rhetoric. The first steps are being taken. And these are not the same, these are the same throughout the continental Europe as well. So when something starts and a hateful movement starts, it spreads through Europe, it spreads through Africa, it spreads through the MENA region as well. And these are the things that we have to be careful about. And as Pride organizers, the first thing that we have to do is be aware of the global situation. So if something is happening around the world, we have to be careful about the rhetoric that they're using, the arguments that they're producing, and the roots of those arguments. Because no matter how local the issues that we have, they're going to get like globalized once like the right starts to communicate with each other, and they do a lot. And because of this reason, the first thing that we have to do is prevent these rhetorics from spreading in our country and renationalize the rhetoric. So one thing that we as Pride organizers are being accused of a lot, and I think two of my friends here can attest to that as well, is that we are always seen as foreign agents, usually from Western European countries, that we are paid agents to disrupt the country, to change the regime, or to change the culture, or to fight the culture, and to target the nuclear family and destroy the family units, basically. So because of these accusations, we're always seen as outcasts. And because of this reason, as Pride organizers, the first thing that we have to do is actually nationalize the rhetoric. So saying that LGBTIs are from this country, and LGBTIs are in the country's culture, and that we are people of this country. We are not agents. We are just organizers from this country working for our civil rights. So that's the first thing. And other things that we do as Pride organizers, especially in Turkey, is that we communicate. We try to communicate with embassies. We try to communicate with international organizations, try to spread the word, and try to get as much media attention to our Pride marches as possible. Because once the cameras are rolling, it's very hard for the police to be as brutal as they can. Like they're still super brutal, and they still drag people through the floors. But the cameras really help, and we actually have evidence to then take to the courts as well. The other thing is always have legal representation. So always have lawyers there present, and also at the hospitals, at the other places, so that you have a net of protection. Because if you don't have lawyers, the police can like create different statements for you. Police can pressure you into doing something that you don't want to. So always be careful. And the other thing that we do to protect all the members that are coming to the Pride marches is actually make the members, or make the people in the community aware of the risk that they're taking. Because there's always a risk when you're organizing a difficult Pride march, and you have to make sure that everyone is aware that what they're coming into is not going to be just a peaceful Pride march, and it's not going to be a peaceful celebration, and they have to be conscious of the risk. So letting people know is very important. And also the sense of solidarity is very important for us as well, because in the Turkish community, like all of us are spread around the country, and all of us feel alone, especially because of the government's targeting. So creating a sense of community between organizations, especially between like larger cities and like smaller organizations, is very, very important to us. So that's why in Turkey, we actually created networks of LGBTI NGOs and also LGBTI Pride organizers, so that we can communicate with each other, talk about our problems, and try to create like solutions together. So that has been very, very helpful for us, especially in the instance of COVID.
I'll go next if I can, because basically what we have done in Tbilisi was first of all, with the preparation of Tbilisi Pride this year, we tried to we took out the solidarity as the main theme for this year's Pride, and we co-organized the event with different civil society movements, and not only LGBT related, but in general human rights or political issues. We involved small and medium businesses, and we were open basically to give space to everyone, whoever wanted to be part of the Pride organizing. So we got to like up to 70 different organizers. We had lots of civil society movements, NGOs, small businesses, restaurants, safe spaces for queer people coming together for the Pride Week. We also mobilized international support. We had the letters of 30 members of the European Parliament, from Congress people, from senators. We wanted to put pressure on Georgian government to ensure basically that they would provide protection on the Pride March, hoping that the international leverage would work. But unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be enough, because when it came down to actually providing the protection, it didn't pay off, and we now got to the point when things are so out of hand that it got to the major political game, when the media is involved, where the political parties are involved, and it's sort of like put the country on the upside down in terms of the political situation. So it's very hard at the moment to navigate in this whole situation, but in general, in terms of like being smart and to outsmart the groups that are fighting on the other side is very important. We are on the informational war. They are using bots and trolls and the factories of them literally to create this artificial reality around us, and we basically have to just toughen our fight to be effective countering these groups that are getting stronger and stronger. And I agree, Malik, about their internet networks. They are getting very organized in every channel that they use at this point. Thanks. I would give the floor to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like I mentioned earlier, I think our mere existence challenges the gender and social norms and our cultural norms. Hence, it's not easy to be able to bring together LGBTI people into a space. And when we do, we also need to be mindful of the politics of the day. What important events are happening? Is it strategic for us to be able to be coming together as organizations? As the challenges that we articulated earlier on influence or are likely to influence who's going to be participating in our events.
Chester, I'm not sure if we're losing you. Melike?
Yeah, I think there's a problem.
Yeah, there's
our
a problem.
own orientations and identities. It's also going to come into play as to who is going to be participating. Although probably it's my name. I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
It got better at a certain moment, but then we lost you again. Correct, Melike? You have the same experience, or is it my connection?
You lost me again?
Yeah, now you're back.
You now.
So it's probably my network. Yeah, so I was saying that we're not sure the challenges that communities face are likely to impact on who participates in our events, as our events, no doubt, are very highly political. So we have to look at the intersectionality of our struggles as LGBTI people with broader society, and how do these connect. And in connecting, then we need to be able to identify our allies. They could be private, they could be public allies. And in most cases, we've seen that the most public of our allies are foreign friends, our embassies, our diplomats who support or understand the basic human rights of individuals, or how these can be enforced. And we do then tend to see that there is a backlash sometimes in associating openly with foreign missions, as then we are then labeled regime change agents, or wanting to impose Western ideas on our communities. So it's important that we also see our allies and be able to speak to them and communicate at what point is it important for them to speak out, to be visible, and to associate. We also need to think like our own governments, their narratives. So increasingly, they are also becoming smarter in terms of their own organizing. So I think for us, it means working 2 times as much harder to be able to respond effectively to what they are thinking. But I think importantly, what we see at the end of the day, we need not to miss the broader why our prides are existing, why our organization space that you're occupying, and strengthening our movements through activism, our movements through activists, to ensure that we still have that collective voice coming together and making sure that our alliances are stronger and we continue to defend that current space. So those are some of the strategies that we've had to employ over the years for us to be able to continue to do the work that we are doing, and making sure that our communities are staying connected with the organizations that we serve. Thank you.
Chester, Melike, and Georgi, I would like to recap all what you said because it's really important. And I personally relate to a lot of things. So you all started saying how important it was to be aware of the politics of the day, to understand the global discourse so we anticipate and prevent rhetorics and attacks. We also said that it was very important to get the media, because when the media is there, things are better documented, and most importantly, sometimes law enforcement officers and the police slow down and they are less vicious than when there is no media documenting their work. However, we understand that this has its limits, since based on what Georgi shared with us, when Georgi, you said that journalists were beaten and equipment was broken during the last BDC Pride. You also said it was important to have a legal representative, a lawyer, constantly on board, attending the events, to coordinate with hospitals, to communicate the risks associated to the march with the participants in Pride. And then we spoke about strong alliances, whether it is creating networks of LGBT NGOs and Pride organizers, whether it is to work also with other NGOs, not only LGBT NGOs, also connecting with businesses, restaurants, other spaces, getting letters of friendship from politicians and other people who understand the work that we are doing, and understand that there is no depravity or perversion or other lewd activity associated to it. And then we said something very important, which is to think like our governments, because when we understand how power balances and how we understand our interlocutor, we can better design our solution, design our engagement with this person. And these are things that Beirut Pride has been doing here. It's quite an environment that has been hostile for the past few years, and now with the economic collapse and the political situation, things are definitely much more acute and aggressive. In 2018, when the police cracked down on Beirut Pride and arrested me, back then I assure you that the presence of the media was crucial. Also having a lawyer with us on site was also very important. So these are things that are very, very important and that are very dear to me, because there are things that I experimented firsthand. And this is why this panel is a panel that we are very passionate about, because, amid all the festivities now taking place in Copenhagen 2021, between World Pride, between the Euro Games and so on, it is important that we understand and remember that a lot of people who organize prides are having a terrible, terrible pushback, and not only from the government, but also from LGBT people themselves, because when the crackdowns happen, people want to blame. They will constantly say that yes, to a certain extent, this happened because the Pride organizers didn't put in place proper safety measures. You didn't communicate properly when you speak about the risks associated to the march. But since there are risks, why are we marching? Why do we need to be there? And, it's just a roller coaster of emotions and continuous conversation. And while having this chat with people from Lahore in Pakistan, people in the Balkan, people in other places of the world struggling to do their pride, again, it's the same discourse, it's the same challenge. So here I'm interested to have another roundtable of discussion where I really would like to understand from your personal experience how these attacks have hindered LGBT solidarity, how they created additional disputes, tensions. Did you have LGBT people leave Pride organizing to go do something else? Did people leave Zimbabwe, Turkey, and Georgia to move to other countries? Did other people go back to the closet? Did other people decide to remain silent? Were they discouraged, etc.? So how have been things at your end?
Yeah, maybe I can start. And for Turkey, it's actually very mixed. So obviously there is a part of the community that have been afraid. And since 2014, a lot of people have been afraid to go out on the streets, attend the events. And the ban that I mentioned, the Ankara governor's ban on all LGBT events, actually really impacted the entire community. And a lot of people were afraid to even go to the cafes where they could meet. But at the same time, a lot of people have been coming together and organizing different events and have been attending the marches. So even if there's a huge crackdown, the community is still very vibrant, and we are gaining numbers around the country. So a lot of pride groups are coming up. A lot of different organizations are popping up around the country. And especially with the youth, you see that the younger generation of LGBTIs are very active in the field, and they're very vocal. So they are trying to speak up in social media, in all of the networks that they have, in their friend groups, and that's just amazing to me. So even in the face of violence, the community is still growing, and that is just brings me so much hope to see the younger people just taking the mantle and trying to do whatever they can, even if they know that they're going to get arrested, even if they know that they probably won't have like government scholarships because they attended a pride march. And this has been happening around the country, especially most recently with the Boğaziçi University protests. The Boğaziçi LGBTI club has been the spearhead of the campaign, and they have been targeted by ministers, they have been targeted by all different government officials, and their club was actually shut down. But still, they continue on fighting, and that just brings me amazing hope. And I know that like the community is very resilient, and like they will continue to fight. And we know that we have lost like amazing people because they couldn't continue their lives in Turkey, and they had to leave the country, or they had to stop coming to pride marches or like LGBT events. But still, there are people that are brave, and there are people that are courageous to go out and protest, even if they know that they're going to be attacked by the police. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the stories are all the same everywhere, really. In as much as the threats continue to increase, I think there's also resilience on the part of communities to forge ahead. Incidents occur, it creates an environment of mistrust amongst the community itself, but I think it also gives us important lessons that we learn from in terms of going ahead, in terms of reorganizing and moving the movement forward. But I think also on the part of communities, it creates fear, which then impacts on one then wants to organize or come together or associate with different people. But I think on the part of our country, what it has done, it has also created new forms of organizing. People are expanding ways of organizing, taking events online, for example, in light of COVID and in light of increased state harassment or state of insecurities, people tend to find alternative ways of think that needs to be celebrated, that we see different forms, new leaders emerging, new organizations coming up, and new ways of expressing and coming together as the community tries to push back on the recriminalization that we're currently seeing and the global kind of pushbacks around LGBTI rights. So it's important that movements continue to be fed and our activism continues to be alive, and to support each other and give each other solidarity. So that's how we've been trying to do.
We lost Chester. Melike, let's go back to you actually until Chester joins us back. We're not the only Pride organizers existing in hostile environment. There are plenty of Pride organizers evolving in hostile environments, and many of them or friends of theirs are watching this panel. And what would your advice be to Pride organizers in hostile environments based on your experience? What best advice we can give to Pride organizers in hostile environments, so at least they don't have to go necessarily through all what we have been going through, but they learn from whatever can be transferred.
Well, first of all, good luck. Being a Pride organizer in a hostile environment is going to be hard in every single way, and you're going to be persecuted. You're going to, like, for me personally, like, I was attacked, I was targeted, I was under arrest. I was actually, like, my house was raided by police. I was taken into custody and kept in a jail cell for a day. And like, I tell all of this because like, these didn't stop my activism because of the sense of community that I have. So as a Pride organizer, your most valuable weapon is always a sense of community, and always surrounding yourself with people that understand you, that want to fight with you. So just increase that network of community. So whether it be through LGBTI organizations, whether it be through other networks like human rights organizations, feminist organizations. So always broaden your network and know that the people that are around you will be there to protect you and will be there to fight for you, even if you are not able to. So always create a network and rely on the allies that you have. And also create international networks. Always reach out to other organizations. It doesn't have to be like larger organizations and international community. You can reach out to smaller organizations. You can reach out to local organizations, because all of us want to protect each other, and all of us want to, like, show our support. And in any way that we can, we want to do that. So if you're in trouble, if you need to talk, if you need help, always try to reach out. And you can always reach out to us. So InterPride and the Uniqueer NGO is always available. So just send us an email and we'd be glad to talk to you. So don't be afraid to reach out, and always create a good support system for yourself. And good luck.
Thanks.
Again.
Thanks for this, Melike. Here I'd like to say something that it is not really, showing interest in what's going in the world is not really based on altruism or us wanting to virtue signal or say that, our heart is with you and so on. It's really a very selfish and personal and interested thing to do, that is to ensure that rights and dignity are upheld all over the world. Because when we see attacks happen on a specific group of people in a certain country, we could be sure that this will have a ripple effect, a snowball effect in other countries. So eventually it's going to come to us. And you know, we don't lose something when a group of people gets their so-called rights. Actually, all our societies are complicated. And it's very easy to dwell in the narrative of traditions and so-called values and so on. We each have our values, and sometimes our values are positive, sometimes are negative. So it's not only and always a matter of positive words and terms and so on when we speak about values. But here, what I really would like to highlight is that when a specific group of people get the right, this only multiplies, this only improves the situation of society at large and also of the other groups around. You know, when we started designing Beirut Pride, we knew that we are setting up a model that could eventually be reproduced or adapted by other groups of people who wanted to improve their realities. Because at the end of the day, what is Pride doing? It's giving visibility to a group of people, telling people that, okay, whether you like us or not, it's something different. It's not something that we're discussing. We're discussing the fact that there are human beings whose dignity needs to be upheld. It's as simple as this. And for this to happen, we needed to be at the table, even at the table of homophobes, only homophobes. We knew that having one LGBT voice makes a difference. Because when you're here in front of the other, it becomes quite challenging and more difficult for the other to dehumanize us and to spread and to make more prejudice and more myth and more lies about who you are and what we do. Chester, do you agree with this?
I couldn't have said it any better. I think Milka said it all, really. The importance of surrounding yourself with love, surrounding yourself with people that supporting you, and being able to create those alliances and fostering them so that they continue to support us through the work that we do. In the event of challenges, I think that's where you realize that it's really important to have friends. It's really important to have allies who can help you see through the challenges that you'll be encountering or facing. So commitments require strengthening and making sure that we stay together, we stay connected to what's happening, and always scanning the environment for challenges or new threats that might be emerging to our organizing. Thank you.
This is a passionate conversation and we're about to run out of time. I do have, however, a question to ask you. When InterPride is a network of Pride organizers, more than 407 member organizations that organize Pride on all continents, what would you wish to see InterPride do to better support Pride in hostile environment?
Yeah, I think InterPride is doing like amazing work, but I think I'd like to encourage InterPride to have more meetings with local organizers, not just the larger Pride groups that are members of InterPride, but smaller organizations. Because through InterPride's members, actually InterPride can reach out to the other Pride organizations that are not members and hold meetings there. Because every single locality has its own dynamics. And I think understanding a country in a whole requires understanding the smaller parts. So just having meetings, trying to find out what the needs of the smaller communities are, and trying to provide them or trying to get them into contact with sources that they can, it's very important. So I would encourage InterPride to do that.
Thank you, Malika. Chester?
I think it's to continue broadening its network. I've seen an increased participation or link with LGBTI groups in Africa for InterPride to be able to understand the different contexts, the different dynamics that affect Pride organizations throughout the world, for it to be truly representative of an international organization as InterPride, I think requires that we all support each other in terms of our Pride events, in terms of our capacities to handle different pressures from different governments and different societies. But I think all the same, I'm amazed by the work that InterPride continues to do. And I'm actually a great supporter of InterPride. Thanks.
Thank you, Chester and Melike, for your kind words. It seems that you have lost Georgi. So for us to wrap this call, a last question. What is Pride for you? Why do we keep on doing Pride in environments where our houses are being raided, when we're being put in jail, when we're being persecuted, when we're living in the anxiety of the prosecution, of the court hearing, when we're getting backlash from our own friends, from our LGBT friends, from our other people, when we have pressure from the family, from the workplace, etc. Why do we keep on doing this, and why is Pride what we do?
Pride for me is my only opportunity to be visible, my only opportunity to be able to create awareness, to connect with our non-LGBTI peers, for them to be able to understand who am I better, and how I exist, and how I enjoy my life, and also what are the political issues that affect me and impact me as an individual, and where the intersectionalities are between me and them. I think we are not different from other non-LGBTI people, and it's important that we connect and understand that the struggle is not only for that. Pride for me.
Yeah, like this is going to be a very sappy answer, so sorry for that in advance. But Pride for me is mostly healing. Like every single day as an LGBTI person in Turkey, we're being persecuted, we're being attacked, we're being targeted, and every single day we are made to feel like alone in our communities. So when Pride happens and when everybody can come together, it's just a beautiful atmosphere where everybody could heal. And all of the wounds that we acquired throughout the year, everyone that we've lost, everything that we've faced is actually, it just becomes better. And we kind of have a sense of community there where everybody appreciates each other, everybody understands each other. And so because of this, Pride is just an amazing celebration. And because of this healing effect, I think Pride is not something that we can give up on, even if we're being persecuted, even if we're being attacked. And I think that's why in Turkey, Pride has been going on for so long, even though there's so many attacks and so much targeting. So even if every single Pride march is banned, LGBTIs will still come together. We'll create spaces where we can come together. And that's just amazing to me. And I just want to continue going to Pride and organizing Prides because of this effect. And I think it's going to get increasingly better once we broaden our networks and keep fighting, basically.
This is Pride, and this is the function of Pride. Thank you very much, Melike Balkan. Thank you very much, Chester Samba. Thank you very much, Georgi Tabagari, for being with us and giving us an insight about challenges that exist in not only more than 68 countries that still criminalize LGBT status, but also other countries that attack LGBTIQ plus people. It is important we keep on doing what we do, because eventually we get these prides, this visibility, to put LGBT people in the middle of the conversation, so we deconstruct myth, lies, and prejudice surrounding our reality. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
That was InterPride.